Hello, Bible readers. It is Tuesday, November 10th. We are reading from 1 Samuel chapters 13 through 15 and Acts chapter 2, verses 14 to 47. I'll start there in Acts. It's important to know that Luke uses the speeches of people like Peter, and he'll use speeches throughout this book of Acts to serve the larger story that he's trying to tell. Not only do the words of the speech that Peter gives here, and that's how speeches will go, not only do the words interpret the present event, but they provide a prophecy, you could say, for events that are to come. And so they make Peter look visionary for what is to come. Luke has already set up in chapter 1 the Spirit falling on the followers of Jesus so that they're speaking ecstatically. This would have been a familiar idea to Greeks who are reading the Acts of the Apostles or are hearing this read. And so, the context where we are in the story is they're hearing Galileans speaking the powerful deeds of God, each in their own language. They're confused and wonder what the event might mean. Some are thinking people are drunk, and that's what's happening. Interpretation is required. And so as Peter stands to address the crowd, we can appreciate how Luke has developed a scene in a matter that would really make sense to the Gentile world, the Greek world especially. Peter is presented as like the leader of this strange group of people who've gathered. And what they may be expecting is that Peter is going to interpret the words that are being said, but he puts a spin on it because the words are intelligible. People who are hearing this ecstaticness understand what's being said. What they do need interpretation isn't what the words mean or what the words that are being said, what they are. They need to understand what this event is about. What is happening here? What it is ain't exactly clear. That's a song. So Peter interprets the event. First, he defines the nature of the event, that the speech of the disciples does not derive from them being drunk, but it's from the gift of God's Spirit. So he's saying what's happening here is coming from the Spirit of God. And then he talks about the cause. So the nature of the event is that it's spiritual. The cause of the event is that Jesus is risen. That's the big thing that Peter's trying to get across. That's the difficult task Luke has as an author, is to demonstrate that the immediate cause of what's happening is the resurrection of Jesus. This is a leap for many who'd be listening or reading this. He backs that up with a bunch of scriptures, including Psalms. He's trying to make a case that the Messiah is one who experiences resurrection. And if that's true, resurrection has happened. And here's what happens is that resurrected Lord equips us to speak new things and basically live a new life. And so not for the last time in Acts, humans here by Peter are challenged to respond to the activity of God in their midst. That's what this speech is about. For 1 Samuel, these are the 3 chapters when Saul is king. It's not a long reign. There's not a lot that can be lifted up here that's very positive about Saul's reign. I'm going to read from my commentary here. His reign is to be brief and unhappy. The 2 central episodes in these chapters are rejection stories. Samuel confronts Saul with violations of covenant obedience, and then he announces God's judgment. Saul will remain in the story for the rest of this book, 1 Samuel, but the focus is going to shift, even starting as early as chapter 16, to David. Surrounding these 2 rejection stories are traditions that narrate Saul's efforts against the Philistines, and so we see really how Saul behaves in these battles with the Philistines is what shows God and shows us as readers why he isn't a suitable building block upon whom God is going to move on and do with Israel as God wants to do. One other piece here. It's about piety. Sorry to go long, but there's a lot going on here, especially was in Acts. But moral responsibility comes with leadership. And we see Saul isn't like the most terrible, awful person ever, but he wants his piety to be recognized and then obligate God to his purposes. Saul wants assurance of outcomes before he starts. His level of trust in God is not as deep as it needs to be the king that God wants to build with. And I just think it's interesting. My commentary talks about how piety is not a substitute for human wisdom and responsible action. It's tempting to let piety become an end in and of itself. But such self-serving religious ritual and practice are ultimately a failure of trust in God. That's why this, Saul never seems to be the worst guy in many ways, but he is not trusting enough. He wants to look the part, but not actually behave the part of faithful, God-following king. Piety can't protect us from moral risk-taking. You can't just talk about wanting to do the right thing. You got to do the right thing. And that's where Saul falls short. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.